I never imagined a single sentence could hollow out the center of my chest. But that's exactly what happened the night Sophia looked at me with eyes that felt like strangers and said, "I don't want this. Not with you." Her voice wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was worse. Calm, steady, practiced, like she'd rehearsed those words in the mirror long before she ever spoke them to me. For a moment I couldn't speak. I just stared at her across our small living room in the little house on Maple Street in Portland, Oregon. The room where we once spent entire Sundays tangled in blankets, laughing at shows we pretended to hate. Now she stood on the opposite side, emotionally miles away, arms folded like she was protecting herself from me, the man who once held her closest. I tried to process it. Not with you. Not with me. She could have said she was tired. She could have said she needed time. She could have said she wanted to talk about the things we'd both been avoiding. But instead, she chose the sentence that felt like a door closing in my face, soft but final. "Sophia," I whispered. "What did I do?" She shook her head, her curls brushing her cheek. "It's not something you did, Liam. It's something I feel. Or don't feel." I swear that hurt more than anything. I sat down because my knees wouldn't hold me anymore. Everything felt too bright, too sharp, the room, the silence, even her breathing. "How long have you felt this way?" I asked. She hesitated. A hesitation that told me the truth before she did. "A while." That was it. No apology, no explanation, just a soft admission delivered with the kind of detachment people use when talking about the weather. I nodded slowly, swallowing the lump rising in my throat. "Okay," I managed. "If that's how you feel." She didn't try to comfort me. She didn't cross the room. She didn't touch me, not even out of old habit. She just gave me a sad smile I didn't want and said, "I'm sorry, Liam." Like she was reading it off a script. And then she went upstairs. I sat alone in the quiet, staring at the place where she'd been standing, trying to understand how someone could love you so intensely one year and not want you the next. But the truth hit me harder as the minutes passed. She had already made her decision. She didn't need to talk. She didn't want to fix anything. She was letting me down gently because letting me down brutally would have been too honest. It was a long night. I didn't sleep. I didn't cry either. I just sat there, letting the reality settle into my bones like cold air. By morning, something inside me shifted. Quietly but permanently. A kind of clarity, sharp and undeniable, formed in the space her words had left behind. She came downstairs around 9. She looked surprised to see me still awake, still sitting there, hands clasped, heart steady in a strange new way. Before she could speak, I stood up. "Sophia," I said gently, "I heard you last night and I want you to hear me now." She blinked, unsure. "I don't want this with someone who doesn't want it with me," I continued. "So today I'm telling you something too. I don't want you anymore." Her lips parted, stunned, like she had expected me to beg, argue, fight for us the way I always did. The way she had grown comfortable expecting. But I didn't. Not this time. She stepped forward, defensive confusion filling her eyes. "Liam, that's not, you're just hurt. You don't mean that." "I do," I said softly. Not out of anger, not out of spite, just out of truth. She opened her mouth again, but I cut her off. "You made your choice last night," I said. "I'm just accepting it today." Her throat tightened. I could see it. For the first time in months, maybe longer, my words actually affected her. "Liam, can we talk?" she whispered. A sad kind of peace settled over me. "We talked," I replied. "You just didn't realize it." She stared at me like she was seeing a version of me she didn't know existed. A version who finally realized that love isn't something you should have to convince someone to feel. I walked past her toward the door, keys in hand. "Where are you going?" she asked quietly. "To find myself again," I said. "Somewhere you stopped looking." And I left. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint smell of coffee from the cafe down the street. I didn't know where I was going exactly. It didn't matter. I just needed to move, to feel the world outside the walls that had held our memories and our mistakes. I walked aimlessly until I found myself in a small park. Benches empty, the kind of quiet that makes you think too much. I sat down, hands resting on my knees, and let myself remember the good times before the distance crept in. The laughter, the late-night talks, the way Sophia used to hum while cooking breakfast. But as I sat there, the weight of her absence wasn't pain anymore. It was awareness. I had spent so long trying to mold myself into someone who could make her stay, trying to meet the invisible expectations she never voiced, that I had forgotten who I was. Her rejection wasn't an end. It was a mirror. And for the first time in years I could see myself clearly. I went home later that day to pack a few essentials. Clothes, notebooks, my guitar. Things that reminded me I had a life outside of her. As I zipped the bag, I realized how much of me had been buried under compromise, under the constant effort to keep someone else happy at my own expense. Sophia appeared in the doorway as I finished. Her expression was unreadable. A mix of curiosity, regret, and something else. Fear, maybe. "Liam, you're leaving?" she asked, voice small. "I am," I said, closing the bag. "I'm leaving the part of my life that didn't let me breathe." She nodded like she understood more than she should. And then the words I didn't expect. "I didn't realize it had gotten so bad." "You didn't want to realize," I said gently. "And that's fine. But it's not fine for me to stay in a love that isn't shared." Her shoulders slumped. She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She just looked at me, really looked. And for a moment I thought I saw the old Sophia, the one who had once laughed at my corny jokes, who had once held my hand in the dark when storms rattled the windows. But it was gone, and I was okay with that. The next few days were a strange mix of emptiness and freedom. Friends checked in, offering support, coffee and long walks. Caleb, my best friend since college, reminded me how long I had been giving pieces of myself away without keeping any for me. "It's not just about her," he said one night over pizza and a bottle of cheap red wine. "It's about you finally saying enough. I'm done giving to someone who doesn't see me." He was right. It was never just about Sophia's rejection. It was about all the times I ignored my own needs, my own voice, in favor of someone else's silence. Weeks later, I moved into a small apartment in downtown Seattle. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. A space where I could play my guitar without worry, where I could invite friends over, where I could start remembering who Liam was without her shadow lingering in the corners. And then came the night she called. Actually, it was just a short text. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a moment, thumb hovering. Part of me wanted to answer, wanted to hear some explanation, maybe even a hint that she regretted how she left things. But I didn't. Instead, I typed back, "We already did. I hope you find what you're looking for." No anger, no bitterness, just truth. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Letting go without slamming doors, without shouting, without begging for closure. But it was also the most freeing. I started focusing on myself. Music, writing, even volunteering at a local animal shelter. Every little step felt like reclaiming pieces of me I had forgotten. The silence that used to feel heavy now felt light, full of possibility. Months later, I saw Sophia by chance at a small bookstore in the university district. She looked different, softer but tired. She smiled awkwardly. I nodded. And that was it. No words, no explanations, just a mutual acknowledgement that some things aren't meant to be forced. The experience taught me something I wish I had known long ago. Love isn't just about desire or attachment. Sometimes it's about respect. Respect for yourself and for the other person's choices. If the love isn't mutual, holding on isn't heroic. It's slow self-erasure. I still think about her occasionally, but not with longing or regret, just as a chapter that taught me how to truly love, starting with myself. Because walking away wasn't the end. It was the beginning of everything I had ignored for too long. The beginning of Liam. Not the Liam who lived to keep someone else happy, but the Liam who finally realized that his worth isn't measured by someone else's affection, and that sometimes the bravest love is the one you give to yourself. That night, when I finally strummed my guitar and the notes floated up into the quiet apartment, I smiled. I was finally home, inside my own life, inside my own heart.